Hello everybody, I hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today we're going to be looking at Tropical Depression 4E, which just formed off the coast of Mexico in the Eastern Pacific, and we're going to be going over that and some of your model guidance for that and what the National Hurricane Center is showing for it. It looks like it's going to stay as a tropical depression for about the next 12 to 24 hours, and then it should slowly transition into a post-tropical cyclone. Now, we're going to start off here with your National Weather Service page, and it is actually quite active today. We have several areas of flood watches. We have some in parts of northern North Dakota as well as parts of western Montana and northern Idaho. We also have some over parts of Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kentucky, and into parts of Indiana there. And then we have some heat advisories for parts of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, as well as a larger area for parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, as well as a little bit of Arkansas, Missouri, and even parts of southern Texas as well there. And then we have some red flag warnings in effect just west to the west of those heat advisories over parts of Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. And then we have finally some frost advisories actually in effect for parts of northeastern parts of Nevada, where you could see your temperatures get close to about 36 or 37 degrees overnight tonight and over the next coming nights, because you actually have a very, very cold air mass over place of the western United States, and that'll be bringing in some of that colder air. Now, something I want to just quickly talk about is actually the National Weather Service is proposing some new changes to the advisory. So, in the winter time, you might see some winter weather advisories, some winter storm watches, or some winter storm warnings, and they're actually starting to change that up. They're looking to get rid of winter weather advisories or any type of advisories. Really, they say it's a little bit too complicated for just the average person. It can be a bit complicating, kind of deciphering through winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and winter storm watches and what they kind of mean. So they're getting rid of advisories, or they're looking to. They've actually been doing quite a bit of research here, and this has been going on since about 2014, and now they're finally starting to kind of put it all together. And they've been doing studies since 2014 to about 2019. And here's just one example of one of their studies, and it's a 161-page document of all of what they found through. They were surveying a bunch of different groups, and they were looking at what they thought would be the best usage of the advisory. So they actually have this whole 161 page document. You can go read all of these. They're on their website. Now here's what they're proposing. They're actually making it a bit more simple. They're actually putting in simple messages, kind of as an example for a winter weather advisory. If they don't get rid of these, they're at least going to change the messaging, and instead of saying a winter weather advisory in effect from 6 p.m. this evening to noon Mountain Daylight Time Wednesday. This is just one example. And then it would change to light snow accumulations expected from 6 p.m. this evening to noon Mountain Daylight Time Wednesday. So it's just a little change, and it makes it a lot easier to understand, especially if you're not too invested into the weather and you just want to know what's going on. So that's just something I wanted to show you guys. Again, this is all on their website, and then a National Weather Services page's website, and actually did this for every single type of advisory. So you can go read this if you are interested, and they have a lot of information on their website. So we're gonna get into the hurricane right now. We actually do have one little disturbance off the coast of the Carolinas here, and this has a 0% chance of formation. So it's under a 10% chance of formation, not quite zero, but just above zero. So we have a very, very slim chance of this developing. Anyway, this would be heading off to sea. So even if this did develop, it wouldn't really cause too many issues here. But as of right now, it doesn't look like this storm in the Atlantic will develop. Now here's the Eastern Pacific here, and we actually have two areas. We have 4E right here, which currently is moving about 3 miles per hour and has wind speeds of about 30 miles per hour or 25 knots, which is about a high-end tropical depression or a middle tier tropical depression. Now we have a 20% chance region over the next 5 days for this area southwest of Mexico there, and that's going to be moving its way westward. And I'm actually going to show you guys. We do have a couple of areas, and it's kind of like what we saw just a couple of weeks ago, where we kind of had this train of thunderstorms just move through anywhere west of Central America to about Hawaii, and that's just going to continue, and we're actually going to see more tropical development occur because of that. And we actually did see, I believe, Boris, I believe it is. It's the B named storm for the Eastern Pacific, and we actually did see that B named and form over the past couple of days. Now, here's where it currently is, and it's southwest of Mexico again here. Now, here is what the cone of uncertainty looks like from the National Hurricane Center, and they actually are keeping this as a tropical depression all the way until about 12 a.m. on Thursday here, so it has about 24 to about 48 hours left in its lifespan as a tropical depression. Then it looks to weaken to a post-tropical cyclone after about Thursday or so. Now, here is your arrival time of those wind speeds, and you're seeing you're gonna see basically a 5 to about 20% chance of seeing those tropical storm force wind speeds. So we have about a 1 in 5 chance of seeing a tropical storm develop out of this. Right now, I'm not personally going to forecast that because that just doesn't look too likely at the moment. Now, here's your history of tropical storm or hurricane force wind speeds, and you have no history of that. And this is actually, I believe, the second or third advisory package where they did name this as Tropical Depression 4E. Now, here is the model guidance here, and we actually have most of them moving westward. Now, the model guidance with this one's all over the place. Some have it curving around, then moving back westward. Some even have it moving south. So we really are quite uncertain with this. The overall consensus, if you were to draw kind of a middle point here, would be something like this in terms of a track, somewhere in the middle of this big cone of uncertainty. And these models, usually with these systems, especially in the Eastern Pacific, they have worse model guidance than they do with the ones in the Atlantic. That's just because we put more attention to the Atlantic, most because more of those actually do impact land. Most of these Eastern Pacific storms come close to Hawaii. Most of them don't even touch Hawaii, and they mostly are just ocean storms or fish storms. So we don't actually usually put too many models on these, so it's really hard to get very accurate model guidance with these Eastern Pacific storms. Now, here's the GEFS tracks, and you see most of them heading northwestward, and it's a very wide cone of uncertainty with the GEFS or the GFS ensemble models. And here's the Canadian ensemble models, and again, most of them moving northwestward. But you see that huge span between the easternmost model run and the western most or the southernmost model run. It's kind of like this is a very wide span in terms of where this system could potentially go. Now, here's your model intensity guidance, and right now it looks like it's at its peak, and it's going to slowly decrease into a weak tropical depression, if not a post-tropical cyclone, within again the next 24 to 48 hours, and it should bottom out at about 15 knots or about 20 miles per hour or so. Now, here is currently your model guidance for this, and this is your European ensemble model and what they're showing. Now, the European model, this is over the next 24 to 72 hours, has about a 95 to 100% chance of this being a tropical depression. Of course, this already is a tropical depression, so these tropical depression wind speeds potentially could make landfall or make impact with Baja California, the southernmost part of Baja California, within the next 24 to 48 hours or so. But it does look quite unlikely, probably about a 30% chance of that happening. And then as we continue to move through, we start to see this dies out, and then that actually opens the door for some more of these systems. So we have about 4 different systems, one over Central America. We have another potential area over south of Mexico, another one southwest of Mexico. We still have Tropical Depression 4E there, and then we have another one south of Hawaii there. So we have multiple systems. We also potentially could have something form out in the Gulf of Mexico and into parts of the Western Atlantic. So we'll talk about that later when we get closer to that event. And you see these systems really start to kind of strengthen. They kind of eat each other up, and then they kind of just strengthen. They kind of use the energy from each other to create a bigger storm, you could say. And most of these have about a 50% chance of developing right now into a tropical depression. Now, here's your chances of getting into a tropical storm status, and we see we have very low chances. Now, this is for currently Tropical Depression 4E, and we have a very, very low chance, 5 to 15% chance of that happening. And then within the next few days, we do actually have a decent chance, 45% chance, southwest of Mexico, that you will see a tropical storm within the next couple of days, and that would actually be a little bit closer to landfall. So that would definitely be something interesting, and I'll probably be tracking that if that does develop over in the Eastern Pacific. And we also again have to be wary for something that could pop up in the Atlantic. Now, most of you guys have probably heard of this Saharan dust that's been moving through the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic and parts of the United States. That is going to hinder the development of these storms is in the Gulf of Mexico and kind of offshore of the United States off the East Coast. But it's really it's not that bad over parts of the main development region, which is just west of Africa. So we don't have too much Saharan dust there, and we're actually already seeing some tropical waves start to move through. Now, most of these tropical waves don't develop into anything or never really get named, but about 15% of them, 10 to 15% of them, will actually get named. And the more you have of them, the greater chance that at least one of them will get named. And we're off to a pretty good start with this hurricane season. It has been a little bit not that active over the past couple of days, but it does look like it's going to fire back up again, especially with sea surface temperatures in parts off the Atlantic, potentially off the East Coast, warming up. So that could potentially lead the way for some sort of East Coast tropical storm. So we'll have to see about that, and I'll definitely keep you updated if that does look like it's likely to happen. Now, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.